Hello and welcome to the Villa Views Transfer Talk. I'm Tom Julian alongside Dan Bardell. Dan, you look like a walking billboard tonight. You've got all of the labels and you just look like you're an athlete just, representing.
And you look like a charity shop mannequin.
Seems like I gave you a compliment there. I said, you know what,
I didn't think it was a compliment.
You're a sports star, you're an icon. Charity mannequin doesn't seem like it's in the same league.
Sorry. No, obviously, when we came on, then we were still discussing who was going to do the intro, and I was worried that you hadn't heard me tell you to do it, and that we were going to come on and no one was going to say anything.
Don't worry. I heard you loud and clear. It's good to be back, even though there's not that much to talk about. Lots of comments coming in already, so thank you to those that are joining us this evening. Listen. Make sure you get your comments in. We'll get through as many as we can. Chris Dolan, who's the guy in the silly hat? Not me this week, so that's good.
I must about the dress code. Last week we both had hats on. I assumed you'd wear a hat again, and you haven't.
I assumed that wearing a hat twice in a row would be too much.
I've changed my hat. It's a different hat. That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah, I don't have that many hats, to be honest.
More hats than new signings.
Yeah, it's very true. Football, where are the new signings? Dan, well, let's talk about the quickest subject first of all, and that is transfer talk. There isn't anything to talk about. We were here last week, and we talked about a few guys, Watkins, Ratsica, a few others, and we kind of thought, well, listen, the players haven't come back to training yet. It's still relatively early. There aren't that many teams making signings. You've probably put that video back in again. We've only had a couple of days of training. You're still not seeing that many signings across the Premier League. And there's nothing really new apart from maybe one or two more rumours.
Yeah, I mean, I said yesterday on Twitter, I'm not really panicking. It would have been nice to come on here and talk about a new signing. I thought possibly last week. I thought this week might be the week where we did come on and do a show, and it's pretty poor of us to come up with a show called Transfer Talk and then just no transfers happen. That seems quite typical of what we do around here, to be fair. But I'm not panicking because there's very, very little business going on. There's been a few Bosman moves, so like Will.i.am to Arsenal from Chelsea is a relatively big move, isn't it? But have I said his name wrong? I got confused between the Black Eyed Peas and the footballer there. Got my wires crossed. But there's not much going on, is there, across the board? So the people that are panicking every day saying where are the signings? I get that we finished 17th. I get that there's a little bit of work to do. But also teams that were safe long before us, teams that were consolidated, they'd have had a lot more time to work on what they're doing in the off season. So they'll have been able to prepare because they knew what league they were going to be in. We didn't really know what league we were going to be in. I'm sure there's two plans, but I'm sure there was two plans. Sorry, but we'll do business. It'll be between 4 and 6 players coming in. I suspect probably most of it will be after the season started, but there'll be 2 or 3 bodies in before the season starts. I'm almost certain of that.
Paul Danton says, has Will.i.am left The Voice already to join Arsenal? Maybe he has. He's swapped the spinny chair for Mikel Arteta's chair.
Good signing.
You think?
Yeah, good player. Winning mentality. I think that's a good signing.
For the money, it seems like I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll wait and see. It feels like they've abandoned the old. I mean, it was a long time ago now, but Arsene Wenger, the no over 30 policy of only giving over 30s 1-year contracts, if that. Seems like that is a long time gone. But let's get back on Aston Villa just for a second. The one player that we have been linked with in the last kind of 24, 48 hours is Weston McKennie. Earlier this month rejected a deal or rejected a move to Hertha Berlin, stating that he wanted to go to the Premier League. Southampton thought to be interested in the 21-year-old as well. Dan, what do you make of the Weston McKennie rumours? Do you like it? Do you see any truth in it?
He'd fit the bill of the kind of player I would think that we would look for. I think there'll be an element of getting some Premier League experience in, but I also think you have to go the other way a little bit as well and get someone who isn't tried and trusted in the league. He's got good pedigree. He's got good experience for someone so young. He broke into the Schalke team really, really early. He's been a USA international for a few years now as well. So he's been around from a young age, and he's someone that from what I've seen of him, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I've watched him every week because I absolutely haven't, but from what I have seen on him, He's a really good player. He's athletic. He's box to box. I think I won't say who it was, but I was having a disagreement with someone yesterday where he was saying to me that Southampton would be a better fit for him, and that Southampton would be a more appealing move. I'm not sure that it would. I still think we've got quite a bit of pull compared to teams like that. I get that a lot of what he was saying was a lot of players have gone to Southampton, and then they use Southampton as a stepping stone, and they end up getting a big move off the back of that. Southampton make profit, and then they're happy. But I think I can see him at Villa. He's the kind of player I think we should be looking at. Young, energetic, hungry. As I say, he's got that pedigree and he's got that experience already for someone so young. I think we spoke about it last week. Villa haven't really ever shopped in the Bundesliga, and I think it's, of all the foreign markets, I think it's the most sensible place to shop because the league's the most similar to the Premier League. So it'd be one I'd be fully behind. And 20 million doesn't sound a ridiculous fee to me. Either 20 million is not as much as it used to be in football. It's a relatively cheap deal. He's someone I'd like to see, and I'm hoping that's one that we get done. But that's really the only. It's not even concrete, is it? Because you can be interested in a player and nothing ever happened. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realise on social media. Villa will have a genuine interest in this guy, but it doesn't mean they follow through with it. It doesn't mean they haven't got other targets. It doesn't mean that if someone else goes elsewhere that they might move to McKenna. He's just someone that they're looking at the moment, someone they might make a move for. But it's a good link, and as I say, someone I'd like us to look at.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, he's only 21, already made over 90 appearances for Schalke. They didn't have the best end to the season last year. I think they went about 16 games without a win. Terrible time after the lockdown and the postponement of the season as well. Schalke really fell off. But he's a combative midfielder. He works hard. He's good in the air for considering his size as well. So it would make it quite a dynamic midfield three, I guess, if you can keep Douglas Luiz, John McGinn, and then add someone like Weston McKennie in there, pushes Grealish a little bit further forward as well. Makes it a very hard-working midfield, I would say.
Yeah, he spent some time at centre-back, I think, this season for Schalke, which probably isn't his favourite position. It's Wagner who's at Schalke, isn't it? Who's the manager, or was the manager. He's played McKennie at centre-back quite a lot this season, which isn't his primary position. But again, it's that I like having a multifunctional player. If you've got a central midfielder that can play centre-back, you probably don't need a fifth centre-back in. You're probably okay with the four you've got because you've got that extra cover there. And that's another thing I'd like to see us move towards, players that can play in multiple positions and do different jobs. And I'm sure McKennie could play as that box-to-box, and I'm pretty sure he could play if Luiz wasn't playing. We don't know what's going to happen with Nakamba. I'm pretty sure he could play as the deepest midfielder as well. So ticks a lot of boxes, young and hungry, reasonable fee. Southampton are interested in him, and they've bought well over the years, as I said. So again, getting one over them and getting him in instead of them, I think it would be a really good buy. They've been sensible with transfers over the years. Southampton, they've got a good setup going. So McKennie's someone I want.
Mark Jarobi says he's great on duels in the air and could be a real threat on set pieces as well. Peter Graham says, how important do you think getting someone with Premier League experience is? That is always an interesting one, and I think it's especially in this kind of social media culture where we couldn't access a lot of different people's opinions, people that we wouldn't necessarily speak to on the street or at work or anything. There's quite a big divide, isn't there, by going after players that some people have never ever heard of, compared with those kind of tried and tested names that aren't maybe necessarily the most attractive names potentially, but you know that they do a job. Where do you see the line for Villa?
I think it's definitely something that we missed last season, so it's definitely something that needs to be rectified. If we'd have got Gary Cahill in last season, I really don't think we'd have struggled, because in the first half of the season or before lockdown, our defending was all over the place at times. Someone like Cahill would have settled us down, but you've got to get the right kind of person in. When we did it with Lescott, it obviously didn't work, and to be fair, at the time I was all for that sign. I thought that ticks some boxes. I think that's what we need at centre back, but it just didn't work. You've got to hope that you get someone in with Premier League experience. Premier League experience is two things as well. You either go for someone like Gary Cahill, who's getting on a bit and he's experienced and he's won, and he can bring something to the team like we did with John Terry in the Championship. But Premier League experience doesn't necessarily mean that they're 30 plus. You can get Premier League experience, someone in who's 26, 27, but we need people who've played Premier League football before, I think, because in those moments where you're in trouble, those moments when you need organising, that's when you bring that kind of player to the front. And I think we missed a bit of that last season at times because we didn't have that other than Tom Heaton.
Absolutely. Just got a message through from, I've just lost it, Paul Enigard. Hi from the Faroe Islands. I think that might be our
Wow.
first message from the Faroe Islands.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in to Transfer Talk, even though there isn't a single actual transfer to talk about. Radchika, I mentioned earlier, Dan, the Werder Bremen made a statement earlier that Radchika is looking for a move. He's handed in a transfer request, so something is happening there. Whether he ends up at Villa or not still remains to be seen. And for all we know, the interest in Ollie Watkins is still very real, and still we're still pursuing that option, but no further news to really announce on either of those.
No, it's still the Rizika one is one I still can't say his name. He's one I still can't see it. If he's putting a transfer request, which is very rare in football nowadays for a player to put in a transfer request, because they lose out on financially, don't they?
So
They put in a transfer request, they lose out that way. So it's very rare that someone goes the whole hog and does that. So fair play to him. At least he's being honest. But it seems to be Leipzig are the big favourites. It seems to me like he wants to play Champions League football, so he ain't gonna get that at Villa. It's one I can't see. A few people that I've spoke to have said that there isn't interest in him really. So the only way I could see has been interested in him is if Jack ends up moving on, which obviously we all keep our fingers crossed doesn't happen. It's just not one I personally can see happening. But as we found out last summer, I've been wrong before.
you have, absolutely. Chad Thomas, hi from Arizona. Again, I don't think I've seen an Arizona post before. Gaz Oakes says top level experience from the top 5 leagues equates quality to me. And I saw a post from Tom Cowley earlier saying that he thought the Premier League experience was a bit of a myth. To me, I think it's position dependent. I think you can get top quality Premier League players that you know are going to come in and do a job. Someone like a centre back, particularly. Obviously, it's not the be all and end all. You can have played in the Premier League for a long, long time and then drop off. But something like a centre back where your kind of additional attributes like your organisation, your leadership, that kind of thing can be so important. And also goal scoring, Dan. I mean, we talk about Watkins being a young and hungry striker. We also need somebody that can hit the ground running in the Premier League. Is that a position, a centre forward, where you'd kind of want somebody from Premier League, or are you willing to take that gamble, which we've kind of done in the last 12 months?
I think you'd love to get a centre forward in with Premier League pedigree, someone who scored goals at the highest level in the Premier League, but that is virtually impossible. It's so hard to get that, and I'm sure we would have wanted that last summer as well, and that's why we went the route that we did, because you just can't get it. I can't think of a striker off the top of my head who's realistic you could get, who you could say is a natural Premier League goal scorer. I mean, you look at someone like, I'd love to get Danny Ings. I mean, this is turning into a Southampton show, but you'd love to sign Danny Ings for Villa. I think he'd absolutely bang them in. But Southampton would want crazy money for him. He probably wouldn't really want to move. He would probably look at it as a sideways move. Getting a goal scorer in with Premier League pedigree is the hardest thing to do, and that's why I feel a little bit sorry for the transfer team, because I genuinely think it's so difficult. It's probably something you can get in every other position, but a goal scorers are hard to come by anyway, natural goal scorers. But to get one who's got that extra box ticked of the Premier League experience as well, who's going to get you 15 to 20, I think it's nigh on impossible, to be honest.
The obvious comments that are coming up here, Dan, is the Tammy Abraham links.
Yeah.
Do we haven't seen any more posts from the secret agent Jack Grealish. Do we think that any transfer speculation regarding Tammy is even remotely plausible? What would you give a percentage of Tammy being in a Villa shirt in September?
I mean, you can give it a percentage, because I don't think you can never say never to a lot of things, but I'd say it's minimal. I said last week, if Jack stays, there's more of a chance. I just can't see it. I think he's part of Chelsea's plans. I don't see Lampard rushing to get rid of him. I know they've bought Werner in, and I know his best position is as a striker, but there might be games where Chelsea, they play 3 at the back quite a lot, where he'll want to pair them together. Werner has got the added caveat that he can play wide left pretty well as well. And Tammy ticks the homegrown boxes for the European competitions as well. I just can't see that they're going to be eager to let him go. And to be honest, I don't think Tammy will be in a rush to leave Chelsea either. I think he'd probably be looking at giving it another season and seeing how he fares. His goal scoring record stacks up last season at Chelsea. I think he got 15 goals in the Premier League or something around that number. That's a good record. He lost his place to Giroud through the end of the season, but they're not going to get rid of Abraham over Giroud. The age and the homegrown quotas. It's just not going to happen, and it's something I think is pretty much impossible. But there's always a small chance, but I cannot see that at all.
Errol Neptune. I'm a fan of Chris Wood. He works his socks off. Darren Woolley joining us on Facebook. We need to sign someone soon as the season is just around the corner. How important is it that we get our business done before September the 12th, or indeed a week later, as we'll come to?
You'd want a goal scorer in before the start of the season, because that was our biggest problem in the back end of the season. We just didn't look like a striker was ever going to score a goal, did we? So you'd want to get that sorted. People talk about, I mean, Dolan's mentioned Chris Wood to me a few times. It's not easy to just go and get someone like Chris Wood, as much as we don't like it. Burnley are an established Premier League team now. Chris Wood's playing every week for them. He's scoring a fair amount of goals. I mean, I wouldn't describe him as the natural goal scorer that we need, in all honesty, because he isn't a natural goal scorer. He's a very, very effective player and a good player, but he's also a very effective and good player for the way Burnley play. We don't play the same as Burnley, but you can't just go and grab someone like Chris Wood from Burnley. Villa can't just go to other Premier League teams and just take players. It's not that simple. It used to be a lot easier when there was more goal scorers about. When you think of some of the players over the years that, when I was young, growing up, the England squad got proper goal scorers like Andy Cole, Chris Sutton, people like that. They never used to get anywhere near the England team. Whereas if there was players like that about now, they'd 100% be in the squad in around the sides. It's just not easy to do what people think it is. You can't just go and pick up Chris Wood. It isn't going to happen.
I feel like you're disrespecting Andy Cole by putting him in the same bracket as Chris Sutton there.
The first two came to my head.
Andy Cole is on a complete different level, I would say. But I totally agree that certainly Andy Cole, you talk about Ian Wright, who probably didn't have enough England caps as well.
There's loads. Les Ferdinand.
Les Ferdinand, indeed. Yeah. Foot boot. Are we going to panic buy? New director of football thrown in at the deep end. How, as I guess as we edge closer to the season, is there that element of we need to get bodies in, and therefore we end up rushing the business rather than taking our time in what might have happened in a normal transfer window?
I mean, I suggest it's the same for absolutely everyone in this weird off-season. There might be an element of a scattergun approach around the football world, just because of the nature of the transfer window this time. It's a very, very unique situation that every club will find themselves in. So I don't know. I'd like to think that we've learned, but you'd like to see a measured approach. But I know it's very difficult if we were getting to a week before the window shut and we haven't got a striker in. I mean, look what happened in the last transfer window. We pulled Borja Baston around the back of Suso Sofa, and you pull him in from nowhere and he's useless and he barely plays a minute for us. So there is always that risk that ends up happening. But the striker's the one we have to get sorted. That is an emergency, in my opinion, because if you haven't got a goal scorer, you're going to find yourself down the bottom of the table again. Wesley might be better this time round. I know you've got your thoughts on him. I've got mine, but he might suddenly come in, and you would have said maybe he could have come in and had a better second season, but then got the injury to recover from as well. It's a massive injury. It's going to be hard for him to come back from that and hit the ground running. And he was not at his best when he was playing last time round. So striker is an absolute emergency for us. We have to get that right. And for me, if there's not a striker in for the first few games of the season, I'll be very disappointed, because we need something different up there. Yeah, I saw
quite a few comments back now. 1 to 11 Kit said, do you expect Wesley to come back and not necessarily hit the ground running, but be a better, there we go, come back stronger? I mean, for me, we just don't know, because the injury was, like you say, so severe, and he's been out for such a long time. I still don't think we've got I don't know whether he's going to be ready for the start of the season or not. I'm not sure whether that's even public.
Don't think so.
No, exactly. So, I mean, considering, his injury has lasted, almost 9 months and rolling on to 10 months, we just don't know whether he's going to be the same player that he was, which, again, we have differing opinions on how good that was, or whether the kind of time out will have helped him, mature as a player and be a bit calmer on the ball, or whether he won't, be a professional footballer anymore. Like the scope for where he can be is so big, and that's I again totally agree with you that it makes the striker position so important to get those reinforcements.
Yeah, there's so many variables in football, and with injuries and coming back. It's not even just with injuries. If you think back to the player Samatta was before lockdown, I really liked the look of him, and I thought he had a lot of things that he did very well. And I thought this guy's going to be useful for us. I think with a bit of time, he'll score goals. Then end up going into the lockdown situation, and they have weeks of training together. And I'm thinking, right, this is really going to help him. This is going to get him up to speed, and he's going to come back and he's going to be even better. But he came back and he lost confidence or whatever, and he was worse, wasn't he? So literally anything can happen. But if Villa don't sign a striker, we will be in trouble. That's just natural. We were in trouble at the last season, weren't we, without having a goal scorer at the club. You could do all the business in the world around the rest of the pitch, but if you haven't got someone who'll put the ball in the back of the net, you'll find yourself down the bottom.
Yeah, that was it, wasn't it? Brian Clough always used to say, first two buys are your goalkeeper and your centre forward, and if you get those two positions sorted, it doesn't mean you don't have to fill the rest of the 9, but you're setting yourself up to go on and have some success, hopefully. Speaking of goalkeepers, Dan, a lot of the comments talking about seeing Tom Heaton back in training today. It was nice to see those pictures kind of come through. And he obviously tweeted himself, Heaton, that he was pleased to be back out on the pitch. Good to see him playing, first of all. And do you think he's going to be the number 1 choice at Villa Park come September?
I think in an ideal world, yes. But I don't think we can afford to take the risk of not adequately having some more competition in the goalkeeping area, because Heaton's coming back from a bad injury. He's my age, so he's getting on a bit, Tom Heaton now, isn't he? At 34, I think he is. He could break down again. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen, because he's an exceptional goalkeeper and a really, really good presence in the dressing room. We need a fit Tom Heaton if we're going to compete and do well next season. But I don't think we can take the risk, because Steer is someone else I absolutely love. Love Jed Steer. I think he's a great backup, even in the Premier League as a number 2. I'm very happy with that as a backup. But he gets a bad injury every season as well. Neeland, I think, will probably be moved on. Kalinic is training with the first team, but I'd be surprised if we ever saw him in a Villa shirt again. So there needs to be another goalkeeper around the place, and it needs to be someone that can potentially be number 1 for the season, because Heaton's had a fair few injuries over the years as well. That injury he got for us last season, it wasn't his first bad injury. He's had a few in recent years, and I think it's a bit much to just rush him back and hope, again, not hit the ground running, because it's different for a goalkeeper, but think he'll come straight away and be top level when the season starts. They've got to manage it carefully, and they've got to manage his body carefully. So I think I understand we are in for a goalkeeper. We want a goalkeeper. I think he's possibly been identified, but they've not managed to make a move yet. But they need a goalkeeper, I think. Again, I think that's something that's high on the priority list.
It surprises me that Kalinic is still even training. To be honest, I would have thought that he personally would have wanted to be out of the club and getting with a new team and trying to get some first team football. He's really not had a fun time since he arrived at Villa Park. But like you say, Jed Steer could be a top quality backup. He probably wants to test his abilities as the first team goalkeeper as well somewhere. I don't know how frustrated he'll be to be considered the number 2.
I think he obviously would have known when we went up there was every chance we were going to buy a goalkeeper. I think he's a very, very nice guy, and he's a very low maintenance guy, Jed Steer. He's not the type to cause a fuss. I think being number 2 to Tom Heaton is something that he would probably sit there and understand. I think he'd get that. He probably wouldn't be happy if we bought another goalkeeper in and being a number 3. But again, I just think he's such a nice guy. I don't think he'd kick up a fuss at all. And the injuries between those 2 goalkeepers mean and if Neeland goes, and would you be happy? I like Neeland, but would you be happy with him as a number 1 for the majority of the season? Probably not. I think he'll move on if he can find himself a move and go on and be number 1 in a different country somewhere, I would suspect. I think it would be naive of us not to bring in another goalkeeper and someone that's capable of being a Premier League number 1. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I saw the rumours this morning. I mean, they're not from the most reputable papers, so not putting too much stock in them. But the rumours of Grealish to Manchester United with Romero coming the other way were doing the rounds this morning. And if you take the whole deal away and you just think about Romero as a goalkeeper, Dan, is he someone that you want to see at Villa Park, or you'd like to shop somewhere else?
He's a decent goalkeeper, isn't he? Every time he comes in for the cups for Man U, he seems to do all right. But I suppose he ticks boxes of he's got experience and he's got Premier League experience, albeit probably not that much because he's probably sat on the bench more than he's been on the pitch at Old Trafford. I wouldn't be against him as a move, to be honest. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Man U because De Gea ain't going anywhere. Doesn't look like Henderson is going anywhere. So that's number 1 and number 2 sorted. I don't think an Argentina international is going to be content at being a number 3. So Romero could well be someone who is on the move. Maybe he's got a point to prove in the Premier League because he's never really been given a crack of the whip at Man U, which he will have known going into his contract that he was going to probably be back up to De Gea. I think it doesn't take a Brian Box to work that out, does it? But he'd be an interesting one. I can't think of many number 2s in the Premier League that I'd want. He'd probably be one I'd accept and could see value in signing him.
Henderson, and you talk about Henderson now. That there's a quality goalkeeper who's probably going into the season thinking that he might have an outside shot for the Euros. Considering the delay, he'll be very frustrated to sit on the bench, and that'll be a very interesting one for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to try and manage his happiness, especially with De Gea perhaps not performing to his best quality at the end of the last season. I don't know whether Henderson thinks he's got a shot at the number 1 spot there, but he'd certainly be a goalkeeper that I would entertain the option of.
I mean, I don't think Man U would sell him, so it would have to be another loan. And I kind of feel like Purslow spoke about us not doing that, not loaning people, making them better for another club, because then you've got no chance of signing them. Because De Gea is not going to last forever, is he? He's in his 30s now, I think, De Gea. So Henderson probably would benefit from another loan move and maybe a change of scenery. He's done very well at Sheffield United, but the more experience you can get under your belt at different teams on loan, I suggest that's going to aid him further in his career than just consistently being at Sheffield United. They've signed Ramsdale, who we were never in for, despite being linked with him thousands of times over the last few weeks. I can't imagine he'd be happy at sitting on the bench, Henderson. But I can also see him as being a guy that would back himself to take the number 1 shirt through the season if he gets a chance. So it's kind of like he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, really. Probably he's got the belief in his ability that he could be number 1 at Man U now, but he's also got the risk that he could just be sitting on the bench for the season and just playing in the cups. But I suppose they're in the Champions League. They'd probably play him as the Champions League goalkeeper and the cup goalkeeper, which would be a good experience for him as well. So it's going to be a tough one for him, because if he plays every week, he's England number 1 in my opinion. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I don't see him being the Champions League goalkeeper. I could see him playing FA Cup and League Cup, but I don't see him being the Champions League goalkeeper. Unless
in the group, there's always a few easier games in the group, isn't there?
Well, yeah, maybe a couple of games, but unless David De Gea falls off a cliff and Ole loses patience with him, we shall see on that one as well. Before we move on to the fixtures, Dan, we put out on Twitter yesterday our dream retro signings, if you like. So if you could pick a player to come back and play at Villa Park this season, who would you pick? We have the votes in from the poll that we did, and it was a landslide, to be honest. Dwight York coming out on top there. He's the man. I think lots of people in the comments were saying we need a goal scorer. Dwight York, legendary goal scorer for Aston Villa and the big winner. Harsh on Bozzy and Martin Lowson, I think they're a little bit, but needs must, and Dwight York is the man to score the goals.
I will say we gave our social media guy John Inslee way too much freedom in picking these 4 players. We weren't even consulted at all about who went in. Really given some undue freedom for me there, John. Not proving himself enough to get that responsibility.
Well, I quite like it, because it means that you and I can now pick somebody that wasn't on the list for our comeback player of the year, if you like. So we've got a little graphic. I don't know who you've picked. You don't know who I've picked. Do you want to go first?
Can do. I don't really care.
Go on. Oh, great. Good. Glad to hear it. So talk to me.
Right. I thought you might go for a winger, because I thought you knew I'd go for a striker. Because obviously, right, people are going to look at that now and see Benteke and think, oh, he's saying we should sign Benteke this summer. That's not what I'm saying. Although I've got to be honest, I wouldn't be against it. But that isn't what I'm saying at all. I'm saying prime Benteke, the Benteke that was at Villa for that 3 years. We were rubbish, but we stayed up because we had him. I don't think we are rubbish now. So if we had Benteke, prime Benteke as I'm calling him, rather than now Benteke,
right?
I really think that prime Benteke would smash the goals in for us. You really would, wouldn't you? We need a striker. Ashley Young was probably someone that crossed my mind as well, because we'd like a good winger, but probably need, if Grealish is staying, which we hope he does, we probably need more of a right winger than a left winger, I would say.
To me, I feel like Ashley Young was a difference maker when I just think back, and obviously he came in 2007, won Young Player of the Year, scored 30 or so goals, and just was super creative, like terrified defenses. Obviously got called up for the England side when he was with Villa, and he just, to me, embodied the success of the Martin O'Neill era. I know people have different memories of that, but Ashley Young was one of those that came from Watford and was looking really sharp, but took another level, and defenses hated playing against him. I've seen in the comments down a lot of people saying Paul McGrath or Paul Merson as well. Paul Merson is a great shout. Jacob Blackshaw, John Carew, King 81, Benteke back. All respect lost for Dan.
It's not. I knew someone would take it the wrong way. Not what I'm saying. I even explained it before I said it.
Maybe he didn't like Prime Benteke,
Prime Benteke. I clearly, when I sent this choice over, I clearly said to Adam, Prime Benteke. I couldn't have been any clearer with it. But I would have picked Dwight York. I would have picked York because he's the one that we need a goal scorer. Dwight York is the best goal scorer I've seen at Villa in my time supporting the club. Who do I think was the second best goal scorer for Villa? Prime Benteke.
I would have agreed. I'm glad John put York in the poll, because I think we both would have gone for York. That certainly was the first name that cropped up in my head as well. But yeah, fun to reminisce. I don't know if you had a few others, but I thought James Milner always jumps to mind with me. I'm not sure he's the player that we miss the most though right now.
What you need. That's what we need. That's the way you've got to look at it. What would we need now? Goal scorer. Boom. Yeah.
I think that's right. So I think we'll call that a score draw.
Okay. Except for the fact you didn't pick a goal scorer, but yeah, okay.
30 goals in 150 games from midfield. I don't think that's too bad.
No.
Personally, and he would have created more opportunities. We need someone to score them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Samata and Wesley are doing that, but there you go. All right, let's talk a little bit about the fixture list then, because it's not as simple. Well, it is kind of still simple, but it's not quite as simple as it has been in years gone by. First game up, Manchester City, 12th of September, except it's not the first game back. Man City and Manchester United will have a bye week the first week because of their European exploits. So our first game down, Sheffield United at home on the 19th of September. A lot of people today saying, and quite rightly so, that it doesn't feel quite as exciting, the fixture release date, as usual, because you can't go to games still, and it must be frustrating for you and other season ticket holders looking at this, especially those that go away as well, because it's just not filled with the same excitement.
No, I mean, straight away when you look at it, as soon as that graphic came up, then you're looking for August, because it doesn't look right that the season starts on September the 12th. Does it? September the 19th for a season's time, which is what it's going to be for us. It's just absolutely bizarre. I knew that one of my favourite away days was going to be in September, when there's 100% going to be no crowd, so Fulham away. So that's annoyed me straight off the bat, because that's one I always go to. You hope by the time maybe we're playing Leeds at home, you hope that might be the first home game back. But even if you're going to be a season ticket holder, you aren't all going to be allowed in. It's going to be on a rotation basis with supporters in all probability. So I just look at it and it disappoints me. I get it, but it just makes me sad, because you look at your plans, like if you had a wedding booked in for a certain day, you might be like praying that we were away or something like that. There's none of that. It's just completely dead, to be honest. I didn't even turn Sky Sports on this morning. Just had a quick look on my phone and then moved on with my day, and then remembered I was doing this 5 minutes before I came on and realised I hadn't studied them in any great detail at all, which isn't great. The one thing I will say is I look at it and I don't think there's any terrible months in there. You know, sometimes you look at a month and think, oh, geez, we'll do well to get any points in that month. We could be in trouble after that month. I don't see anything like that there, which is a positive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Starting Sheffield United at home, Sheffield United good side, but they'll be much different, I would say, this year, especially not having the same goalkeeper. That's a massive hole for them to fill. And then Fulham away, there's a potential for us to have an all right start. I mean, I don't want to get carried away at this stage, but it's not the worst start in the world. Obviously, Liverpool at home rather than away. You look at that, and it's going to be a very, very tough game. I look at December, which looks incredibly busy, but it doesn't terrify me too much. But then you look at the last month there. Dan May and finishing with Tottenham away and Chelsea at home, you just pray that we're not in the same situation we were this year, and it's going to come down to May, because that could be a very tough month.
Yeah, but then we beat Arsenal in the second from last game, didn't we? This season, that gave us a massive shot in the arm and probably kept us up that win. So I don't think you can look at it like that. October, I mean, it's moved on now. October's annoyed me because, again, if the fans aren't allowed back in, that's a month where you've got 3 home games and there's no crowd to get behind the team. So I feel like you're at a disadvantage by having 3 home games in October, because at some point you're going to have the 3 away games in a month, and that's going to be, there might be crowds back by that point. Does that work against you? There's 3 in April there, so you hope we might be back in by April if the world's gone back to normal in some due way. But I don't know, I can't get excited about it. I just find it frustrating. It's annoyed me more than anything, and I don't have enough things that annoy me. I don't need any more. Yeah,
from the German point of view, they're not looking until 31st of October, and generally the situation in Germany is better. Go on.
I was going to say it's way better in Germany, so that doesn't bode well at all.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I mean, to be honest, not to get too serious about it, but they're looking at, like, the schools have gone back this week, and so what happens when all the schools go back, and does that cause a major issue or not? That's going to be a massive effect, and they're looking at 31st of October. You said it earlier. That'll just be for potentially 25% or 30% of fans.
Yeah.
It won't be the full crowds back, and it'll be a much different place. And I imagine the UK and the Premier League to be very similar to that, if not a reasonable amount behind. So we just have to wait and see what the world is like, because the world takes priority over football sometimes. It's just very hard to imagine what anything is going to be like, and football fixtures and going to Villa Park is just one of those things. And I know it affects you immensely more than it does for me, but it's super frustrating. One other thing I think related to this I read this morning was that the Premier League, this is alleged, I don't think it's fully confirmed yet, but the Premier League will not allow clubs to show their own matches, stream their own matches if they're not on TV. So as I understand it, Sky Sports and BT Sport will show their allotted amount of games again next season. And obviously the games that are without fans, they're not going to be available at this current time. So I don't know whether the Premier League is trying to work on something like that, but there seems to me at this point a good chance that nobody's going to be able to watch games, which is just very frustrating for all involved.
If that happens, that's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I get that I can't go to a game. I don't enjoy it, but I understand that. But there's absolutely nothing stopping them doing what they've done at the end of the season, having every game on TV and separating the fixtures. There's nothing to stop them doing that. And if I can't even watch Villa on telly legally, I'll be absolutely disgusted. And to be honest, I could see me done with football, because I think that would be absolutely despicable, to be honest. And It's sad that I've probably got more. If I want to see a football match, I've probably got more chance of flying to see you in Germany and utilising your Bundesliga contacts and watching a game with you. It's probably more real. I'll probably be able to do that before I'll be able to go to Villa Park, which is weird.
Yeah, it is. I mean, considering you have to rely on me, that does seem like a disturbing place to be. I think the frustration is, particularly with the not being able to watch games, would be that in the Championship and the EFL have the iFollow. So
there's nothing stopping it.
You can watch that. I think the main thing will be, and please all remember that this is a report. This isn't factual, and there's still 3 weeks or 4 weeks to go until the start of the season. But it's about contracts, isn't it? It's about broadcast rights. It's about multi-million deals, not about fans. And I think that's going to be a frustrating thing. I'm saying that as a
no, I know you are.
What are they doing? But let's wait and see. But that's the report coming out at the moment, that potentially it'll be a very, very frustrating time for fans, not just Villa fans, but fans throughout the Premier League.
There's zero excuse for it, though, because they did it at the end of the season. So there's nothing to stop them doing it while fans aren't allowed back in again. Literally nothing. There is nothing to stop them doing that. If the Premier League don't do something about that, then they're an absolute disgrace and they can jog on.
I think that's a fair place to leave that debate because there's no other way to put it. And to be honest, I got caught off guard by reading Greg Crouch saying, "Tom, is that a DFS sofa?" And absolutely, it's not. No, bought it for like €80 off a guy a couple of doors down the road. So
Nice.
yeah, it turns into a bed actually, but not ever so comfortable. So
Okay.
DFS wouldn't be happy with that plug, and it's not the DFS quality that you might expect. Other sofa shops are available. We should get a sponsorship with DFS. Maybe that's something that we should look for transfer talk.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I can't add anything that you've already to what you've said. To be honest, I can't add anything to that. You've thrown me. We're having a serious conversation about the future of football, and then you just come in and start talking about your futon.
Greg Crouch is cracking by. So to make light of a very serious situation, which you're right, it shouldn't be done. But hopefully there'll be more information, and the Premier League will be able to do the right thing in the next couple of weeks. Because you're right, there should be a way around it. They should be able to fix it.
Why would you? I know I get that there's rules about abroad and things like that. Like, you would be able to watch every Villa game in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone who wants to be a season, obviously I can't say I'm a season ticket holder at the moment because I can't renew. No one can, but someone who wants to be a season ticket holder can't watch every game in the UK because of the way the world is at the moment. It just makes no sense to me. There's no logical explanation for that.
Let's wait and see what happens in that situation. I think that's about it, isn't it? We've managed to talk for about 45 minutes or so. I think that we can wrap it up there and just hope that by this time next week we might actually have a transfer to talk about. If it gets to next week, Dan, and there's still no movement, would you be concerned at that point?
I don't know whether I can do next Thursday anyway, so we might have to do a little bit of a reshuffle.
Oh, well.
Anyway, but I'm going to put my neck on the line and say there will be a signing by then.
Right. ITK, down by Del.
No, ITK. That's a prediction.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for joining us on Transfer Talk. There hasn't been much transfer talk, but hopefully next week there will. If you can follow us on Instagram at The Villa View, make sure you subscribe to YouTube. Follow us on Twitter as well. We're doing everything we can to grow our following and make sure that we can push more videos out throughout the season. Hopefully we'll be able to watch the games, but yeah, make sure you follow us on all the platforms. John Inslee doing wonderful things on that social, and we look forward to talking through some more rumours, some more signings, hopefully, or some signings at all next week. Thank you very much for watching. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.